Rip through the clouds, that's to catch us from falling close to the ground. Perish or try to fight it, parachute now. Last chance, the final moment, parachute now and deliver us to the ground. I wanna pull the string, on and on, I feel the speed. Too far to break from pressure, too much to bend the speed.
Welcome, everyone, to the 34th episode of the Chris Perish podcast. But before I get started, got to get that housekeeping out of the way. We're a part of Turnbuckle Studios over here, so make sure you're checking out Turnbuckle Studios on all the platforms, checking out the Turnbuckle Affiliation Program when you have a chance, just like I have, just like everyone else can be, and you as well can be a part of Turnbuckle Studios as well. And thank you to our sponsor, RogueEnergy.com. Make sure you go to RogueEnergy.com and you check out the entire catalog, as they have a plethora of flavors, a plethora of energy drinks, and a lot of great merchandise. And if you're like me, you might want to pick up the blue raspberry. It's a little bit on the delicious side, but make sure on the cart you're hitting the promo code PERISH, PERISH, to save yourself 10%. As you can see, I am not alone. I have a buddy with me. But before, you don't want to hear from me. You want to hear the introduction from him. So take it away, Sal.
How's everybody doing out there? Wonderful pleasure to be on the Chris Perish podcast. Of course, thank you to Rogue Energy and Turnbuckle Studios for everything we do for the podcast. Yes, I am Sal Erakat, the former Pali Prince. I've been in the industry for 16 years. Got out a few years ago in ring. Now have transitioned to announcing, writing, producing, and even helping with booking. I've also been an actor in the past. Lots of cool things I've experienced and I've been through. Very happy to be where I'm at now. When I'm not doing any of the wrestling stuff during the week, I'm dad, I'm husband, and loving life.
Awesome. And just for everyone, he is not on OnlyFans. I've checked. But
Not for this guy.
But yeah, no. Let's kind of dive right in. You mentioned that you're retired, but let's go all the way back to the beginning of the story. What actually got you into pro wrestling? Was it a match? Was it a memory? Was it just a superstar? Was it a sibling that said, hey, check this out? What was the story of Sal getting into professional wrestling?
So my earliest memory of professional wrestling is an obscure one. This one that some people don't usually go to as their first memory. It was Brother Love, with the makeup, with everything on there, the I love you, all that fun stuff. That was my introduction to the wrestling. And then my father, God rest his soul, and I used to walk around the house doing the old bushwhackers when we used to see the bushwhackers and everything, which was awesome. And from there, it just led into this, cataclysmic obsession with everything pro wrestling. Beginning when we're all started, I started watching every week on Monday nights. And I was the only one in my house that watched wrestling. I was, one of 5 siblings, parents and everything. And I was always upstairs in my mother's room, for 2 hours every Monday, going to school the next day talking about it. In 2006, I got afforded the ability to do a couple movies, had fun with that, got into boxing for a little bit. It just didn't feel right. So I ended up needing to figure out how to get into this thing called pro wrestling, and called a bar in Tempe who hooked me up with the promoter for one of the shows out here in Arizona called IZW. Started training there, and then the rest is history.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't know, Tempe is a city outside of, or in Arizona, correct?
Correct. Yeah, it's right outside Phoenix. It's one of the suburbs where ASU is. It's huge. It's changed just in the 20 years that I've been here. It's humongous now.
Yeah. How is the pro wrestling scene in Arizona? I know Arizona sometimes gets a bad rap. Sometimes it's looked at as more of just a desert or part of the desert. But we've seen in the past, whether it's through sports, whether it's with the Cardinals, now or before with the Coyotes, no longer now. But how is the pro wrestling scene out in Arizona?
It has dramatically changed. It started, it's kind of rough. There's only a couple promotions out here in Arizona, with Tucson being 2.5 hours south of us and, Flagstaff being 2 hours north of us. There was only a couple promotions that were here when I started training. So it was very limited. Started expanding and started growing. And now there's shows that are selling out, every single show. Just doing incredible. It's changed, and it's because the leadership here. You got a lot of vets here that have kind of taken over the wrestling industry. It's kind of telling people what's right, what's wrong, how the business is supposed to be. And with that, we have all these new kids coming up, man. I've been at these shows announcing these new kids that weren't even wrestling, when I got out, that are just killing it, absolutely killing it, and they're just, purely entertained. They got the in-ring work, they got the mic skills, and overall, they're not scared. That's the best part, is they're not scared to be in this thing called pro wrestling.
Is there anyone out there you want to give a shout out to, maybe from that area, that is potentially an up-and-comer that you're like, you know what, if you need to check somebody out, make sure you're checking out this guy?
Dude, there's right now there's a slew of them, man. You look at, let's say you got guys, you got some of the you talk about the younger guys. You can talk like the Chubby Deps of the world. You're gonna talk the Enrique Calderones of the day, the Kevin Koas. You got a lot of up and comers. It's kind of all over. Just kind of setting. AJ Hero is another one who is absolutely outstanding. You see this kid walk out and you just want to punch him in the face. Like he literally just one of those kids but you see him,
sign of a good heel, man.
Dude, not to pull too much behind the curtain, but at the same time, it's like you're so cool backstage and everything. Like you see him walk out and you just want to rip his head off, man. It's just like unreal in that sense. So his tag team partner, Pete the Heat, they had been, drilling it up and down, everywhere. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of good talents that are in Arizona. If you get the chance, kind of just to definitely pull up the different companies here and start looking, man, 'cause a lot of guys are going to come out of here. I'm telling you, and gals too.
Is there a company I want to give a shout out to? Because I just want to make sure one thing that is very clear. I have no problem with you giving people shout outs if you want to. Plug your shit is what we say, man.
I like it. So obviously, I got to give the promotion that gave me it's for my first break. IZW, I train with them. They're back up and running, and they are doing wonderful things, unbelievable things. You have Apex Wrestling Federation, which is pretty big, just starting out, and I'm helping out with them in terms of announcing and whatnot, kind of being the one in the back to kind of help lead the charge and just get them to where they want to be. Phoenix Pro Wrestling is huge, run by Don the Bon Vitale and GQ Gallo. Those guys are absolutely killing it. Of course, two people that I know very well, that I'm very close to. Absolutely annihilating the scene out there in that regard. So those three companies there, just it's crazy, man. I wish I was a little bit younger so I can kind of take part in the festivities again and kind of get out there and go hit my bump card over and over again. But I'm very happy putting all these guys over and getting wrestling, just giving back to the business at this point.
No, I have to ask, because that's always the $1 million wonder, right? If we were younger, what would we do? If you were younger and you had an opportunity to go back to your younger self, not so much. Let's get away from the boring. Oh, what would you say? What would you do? No. What would you prefer? Like, do you go through the same route that you went through? Do you now go through a different route, or do you keep keep kind of that same pathway you had? Because I think what's amazing about life is just how many times we go and we're like, are we doing the right? Like, is this the right decision I'm making? But if you had a chance to go back in time, and do you do the same thing, or do you do something different?
Honestly, I mean, hindsight's always 20/20, right? We can always look back and see how we did something and how, oh man, I wish we would have done this. I wish we would have done that. But at the same time, the path I led, 20 years ago, I was on the East Coast. I was in Jersey, just a few minutes from the Monster Factory, a few minutes from, ROH, and had no idea that, getting into wrestling was so close to me when I was living out there in New Jersey. So sometimes I'm like, oh, if I started out there, what would have happened instead of starting out in Arizona? But the path I led, man, it's honestly the one thing I would have told myself is just take more chances and to not be so scared. And I took a lot of chances as it was. But still, man, just having the faith inside, that knowing that you are capable of doing whatever it is. Because all these people that we're watching on TV now, man, they all started out the same way we did. You know what I mean? With a dream, with something, with a certain memory that clicked and it was like, hey, this is what we want to do. And then from there, it turned into how can we make this into a reality? How do we make this dream become a reality? So just don't give up, man. To keep it up, and I just tell myself to be a little bit stronger in that regard. Just just keep pushing for that dream of yours a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the things that as a youth going into a wrestling business, there's a lot of uncertainty. You always want that understanding that this is going to lead somewhere, which is good and bad, because sometimes, like, if you know the path you're taking, you might not make that jump. You might not make that. You might not take the chance that you need to make to get that extra notice, like, because you just never know. That's, I think, the beauty and also the anxiety of the wrestling business
Right.
at times
Absolutely.
is yeah, pro wrestling, everyone knows it's a predetermined business,
Hmm.
but living it, that's the most unknown part about pro wrestling, and
Yep.
that's the hardest. I want to kind
If
of
I can
go
if I
back.
can flip a question on you real quick. If the end result, let's say, because for me, I look at it like this. I ask myself this question: if I knew the end result would be the same, and I wouldn't be signed to a major, company by the end of hanging up when it's time to hang up my boots. If I knew that going in from the first time I stepped into the ring, would I have changed it or would I have still done it? So I asked myself that question. So if I could flip it on you and say, hey, what would be your answer to that? Because I already know my answer.
Oh, my answer would have been I would have moved out of Canada. Like, I already know that. Like, if there was one thing I needed, because the one thing I know, as much as I love my country, I love the opportunities we're afforded to, but I also now know, like, the grand scheme of pro wrestling and the business. I got to get out of Canada. I got to get into the United States. I wanted to work in that mid South territory. I mean, how could you not want to go into the Chicago's? It's right there by the
Right.
Pittsburghs, the Philadelphias, the
Mhm.
Bostons, the New Yorks. Those that's the mark in my eyes.
Right.
That if you can make it out of there, you're looking at so much crop coming out just out of Boston. I mean, hell, John
It's
Cena's
crazy.
retiring now.
Right. Yep.
If you want to make if you want to feel a little bit old, but then you look at a counterpart like a Carmelo Hayes and just how
Hmm.
much he is the a future
Unbelievable.
a champion, and then you're looking
Yep.
at somebody like Mercedes Monet in AEW coming out of that
Correct.
Boston area, just
Yeah.
revamping and reestablishing herself over there. Um, there's so
One of the
much
Viking
talent.
Raiders came out of there too, right?
Yeah, I
One of
believe.
the, and then I can't
Yeah,
remember which one it was. But one of him came, and then of course Kofi Kingston came out of the Boston area as well.
yeah,
He's a
I know.
Northeast guy.
That was
Yep.
another one. But yeah, no, just so much coming out of there, and then you just don't know. Like, this was a crazy thing, and if I can tell you one little story, I went to my first independent show, and it was in Edmonton, and one of the guys I saw was, I think it was a 19-year-old, and his name Kenny Omega.
I've heard of that guy. I think I've heard of that
Yeah,
guy. It's once or twice, right? Well, once
this
or
is
twice I've heard of him.
this is back in the early 2000s. I think it was like 2003 or 2002, 2004, somewhere around that time.
Wow.
And then here we are 20 years later, and this guy just has created an alternative product to the WWE in all
Absolutely.
elite wrestling, and it's just you just never know, right? So
That's how it
uh,
goes.
that's the beauty, but it's also the anxiety when it comes to
Mhm.
pro wrestling. As the journey goes, you never know, but it's on you to see if you can get there, right?
And that's the thing too, is like looking at the because it's always like, okay, this is my goal. I want this. I want this. I want this. And you got to step back and enjoy it. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Because I think back and there are little things that pop up. You hear a song on the radio. I'm like, man, I remember hearing this with the boys, in the car, and we're talking about this, or the one time this happened, or one time this happened. A lot of things I'm not going to talk about in this podcast right now, but a lot of things that happen, and you're like, what is this? A lot of those things that kind of go on, it helps mold us, helps kind of bring us to a certain, je ne sais quoi in that regard of being who we are. And a lot of times I was focused on the end goal and not focusing on the journey, with my brothers, in the ring and the time setting up the rings and just being that camaraderie in the back. And that's one thing now going backstage is I make sure like, all right, boys, let's be excited. If this is your last, how do you want it to go? How do you want it to feel? And that's how I walk into every single show now is like, if this is my last time doing this, what kind of energy am I bringing into the room? And with that, it's like it brings a certain element that it makes it so much better.
Yeah, and that's it. And the one thing, like you're kind of saying without saying, is that this business, as much as it's an individual journey, you cannot get to any crossroads. You can't get to any finish lines without just a surrounding, whether it's people, whether it's coaches, whether it's whoever. But
Hmm.
who are some of the major influences, whether it's in your life or your wrestling career, or even right now as you begin that journey away from the performing, that is making you who you are today? And what were some of the best advice that you've gone throughout your career?
Ooh, okay. If you're gonna, that's tough one because there's so many people, man, that were um, a lot of people that were there for me. You got number one in terms of the wrestling world. You got, of course, like the Dom Vitalis of the world, the GQ Gals of the world, the Derek Nykirk, who is my brother mentor. He was in WWE, and he actually, like, I was one of the few that went up to him when I first started, and I was a scared little puppy, man. 3 months in the business, green as goose shit, and like sitting there with him, walked up to him and just like, hey man, I weigh 159 pounds right now. I want to look like you at 260. I'm like, what do I need to do? How do I get in the gym? Can you show me this? And happened to be that we worked out at the same gym, and Derek took me under his wing, man. We're working out 4 or 5 times a week, and we had that, spiritual connection. We had the working out connection. It was just like that mental, like getting over the mental part of it and understanding is like, yeah, you work, yeah, you have school, yeah, you have this, but this is your passion. This is what you got to dive into, and do it to the best of your ability. One thing he always kept telling me was perfect practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And that was in the gym. That was studying in school. I still take that with me today when I walk into my current job. And what I do is if I'm practicing or we're in a meeting, we're talking about something, it's always perfect practice makes perfect. Um, and from there, it just went on, man. I got to meet and talk to so many legends of the business and so many people and just got advice. Of course, making my way up to Calgary and training with Lance Storm was something I'll never forget. And I am fully indebted to Lance, not just from the wrestling aspect. And that's what a lot of people like you think, oh my God, he's one of the greatest trainers of the world. He's this, he's that. It wasn't just that part of it. It was the conversations we'd have. The 45 minutes, an hour before training, the light, what to expect out of life, how to try to treat people, and there are times, man, I fell off. I wasn't perfect, as we all are. But then you go back to those teachings, you go back to those conversations like, hey, this is how you're supposed to be. This is how you're supposed to really treat people. So, I mean, early on, middle stages, end stages, like I still talk to a lot of these people today, and just appreciative to have them, man, because now we're all grown. Now we've all matured, and it's just you're getting a different sense of experience and life lessons from them. And now I'm passing it on to the ones coming, after me, whether it be at my job or, family or cousins or nieces or nephews. I'm passing that knowledge on to them right now.
That's awesome to hear, because like I love hearing when people are appreciative of the road that they went on, but then they also know that it's just as important to turn around and all the information they've collected, they can go back and pass it around and just add on. And that's how I believe the future of this business is going to continue, is by having
Absolutely.
those people give back. Just like it's very important that in life you also allow the time to help train, help grow, help other people, because those people are going to help carry on life as you know it when you're gone. Because everything has an expiration date. And I think, and I want to touch back to the Lance Storm thing, simply not so much Lance Storm per se, but you talked about how you talked a lot about life as well. And I think one of the biggest perceptions about the life of a professional wrestler is that it's only about performing. It's only about wrestling, which is not the case. Everybody has a different story, but what are some of the best life lessons you've learned through pro wrestling? Because I know I contribute pro wrestling to teach me so much more about life outside of the ring, even though it made me prepared for inside the ring. So I'm going to flip that to you. What are some of those best life lessons you've collected by putting on the spandex?
The don't ever lose focus. Don't lose focus on. I mean, there's if you look at Eye of the Tiger, Okay, everybody knows the song "Eye of the Tiger." Is don't lose focus on the dreams of the past. You must fight just to keep them alive. You hear that, and no matter what your dreams were at one point, and what you're doing, now. So going back, it's proper focus. It's understanding that you do have an expiration date. It's understanding that you have family to rely on, and that family, without my wife, man, being the strongest thing and pillar and foundation of my life right now. Is like I go to her for everything. If I need anything, she's always there to get there, push me back up when I'm down. And when you have those important connections, don't fucking lose them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't lose the good ones in life. As if we've reconnected after however long, and I've reconnected with a lot of people over the past year or two, and it just makes you feel something different inside, because when they're gone, man. That's it, and there's no bringing them back. So definitely appreciate the ones around you and appreciate the little moments. Don't just appreciate the big ones.
Yeah, if I could tell all the girls that in junior high and high school that didn't want to have time to talk to me, I also want to tell you one of the biggest lessons I have. If somebody's always coming back and you got to push it away, that's usually the people you want to keep in your life.
Yeah.
So all the chicks that said no to me, just saying, you fucked up.
You messed up, right? I love it. It's awesome. I love it.
But no, like, and you talked about just touched on your wife and all that, and I think a lot of that is just it's so much. It's just huge how much that personal life and just having that emotional rock can give you more confidence when you do something else like pro wrestling, and not to kind of dive into your personal life as much, because I don't know if you're like me, but I do like a little bit of boundaries once in a while. Like,
Right.
I don't want the people to see everything.
I got you.
But I want to talk about the emotion that you had when you decided to retire and start that next chapter, because it's not the easiest thing to give up something that you've almost devoted your entire life to. But as you are starting out a new life, whether it's marriage, fatherhood, all that thing, and then you decide, also, I want to end this one chapter. What are the emotions that came to you, and how did you overcome those emotions when you decided to hang up those boots?
So I got to take you back to 2011, before I even went to Calgary to train with Lance. I'm wearing a shirt right now. The shirt right here is Club Deportivo Coliseo. It's a lucha libre promotion that was started by my now father-in-law in Chicago, and then they moved out here in 2004. They started the promotion up. I was told I was never going to be in this promotion. I was told I was never going to wrestle for this promotion. They were selling out every week, over 1,000 people every week at the shows, paid, coming in. They had the best lucha libre stars ever. Fuerza, Cadillo, Escobedo, now my brothers-in-law, of course, all trained by my father, Rudy. Also, I was never going to be part of this company right here. Wasn't going to be able to wrestle. The reason I went to Canada was to the drive to come back, and with the number one thing in my head is to start with this company. From there, I walked in and I saw who is now my wife. So wrestling led me to my wife, and now my family, now my boys, right? So fast forwarding and coming outside of it and leaving it is like, yes, I'm not going to be able to get in and do what I used to do and what I still love to do. And still, you get that itch, man. It's like, it never leaves you, right? But what I look at now, and one thing I'm appreciative now, is what I have because of that. The memories, the friends, the experiences, the videos, and of course, like my entire family. Not just my immediate family. My wife is like my in-laws, my father-in-law, who I love very much, my mother-in-law. And it all stemmed from being told at one point, like, you're not going to make it. So being told you're not going to make it, and then making it, and then making the best out of it, I can come out this side saying, I can still do anything I want. I can still literally, yes, I can't go do this, wrestling inside the ring, but I could still, if I wanted to start a promotion and blow it up to the moon and put it on TV, I could do it. If I wanted to do, keep going this path where I'm going with my job, life is limitless when you put it into your head. And that's the one thing coming out of wrestling I realize, is looking back at that trail behind me and all the footsteps and where I'm at, is that would never have happened until I said I'm doing wrestling. So, like I said before, is I knew the answer to me is, would I still have gotten in the business if I knew the end result wouldn't be signed to a major promotion? Yes, I still would have got in, because I wouldn't have been able to live the life I did and the experience I have. And maybe I didn't appreciate it during the time, and I kept focusing on that one thing. I wanted that contract. But now looking back on it, man, I'm just happy with the memories. I'm so blessed. I'm so fortunate. Every word, lucky, happy, whatever you can throw out there, is like it all came together, and just in a good spot right now because of that.
And I want to kind of touch on this. Like you said that you came to Canada and that's how you met, and that pathway took you to your life. If it wasn't for you taking that chance on yourself to improve in that ring, you would never have met your soulmate. You never had met a part of your life that to this current day still changes you and still molds you into being a better man, and now have that family. So in a weird way, pro wrestling actually direct you to its end.
Yep.
In a weird way, it like a lot of people I think just don't understand just how amazing like that stuff could be, because you can hear so many people talk about, if it wasn't for me going to this town, I wouldn't have met this person.
Yep.
But it's almost like in your case, pro wrestling found internal love that you weren't even expecting.
And to say that's the part too, not expecting, right? At the time, I was, focused on just wrestling, focused on working out twice a day, focused on, and I was still going to school at the time too, and finishing up college and whatnot. And it was just like scheduling and everything. And then poof, I walk in this company. Literally, it was 6 days after I got back from Canada. And I walked dead in this locker room and I said, "Hey, do you have a spot for me and my buddy? We just got back from Calgary. Can you help us out?" And my now brother-in-law looks at me. He's like, "Hang on a second." One of the other guys, the Lucha guys, was nice enough, Frankie, to vouch for me. And he was like, "Yeah," he's like, "Put him in, man, put him in." And I got 5 minutes. And after that 5 minute match, I, was told, "Hey, the one who helps book all the American wrestlers is my sister. Her name is Nancy. Go talk to her." And I walked up to her and I saw her for the first time. And it was like the movies, man. You see the flowers go up in the air, the fireworks, everything. I was like, "Who is this?" Took me still a year to talk to her, but eventually I made the jump. And I wasn't that, I didn't have the courage. It took me a little while, but eventually it was, year and a half. And then it just, everything took off from there. And it's just, you're absolutely right. It's like serendipity at that point. It's like you're in a perfect spot at a perfect point. And if I didn't get there because of this thing called wrestling, I wouldn't have the life I have right now, man.
That's beautiful. And I also want to kind of touch on the fact that you said you had 5 minutes, and a lot of people kind of discredit 5 minutes nowadays, or I feel like one of an arguments about, oh man, I like this match, but only if they got 5-10 more minutes, I thought it just would have been amazing. But let's kind of skew back to the meaning of those 5 minutes. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much you can do in 5 minutes, but how much 5 minutes can go wrong as well. Talk about, what those 5 minutes you were afforded to meant for you as a professional wrestler, because it sounds like when you came back with this added confidence, and you weren't going to just ask for an opportunity. You were willing to take it at that point. What Absolutely. Did those 5 minutes do for Sal and his future?
So being a son of Storm, you can't come out of the Storm Wrestling Academy without having all the confidence in the world, man. Everything that goes into that camp and everything that we did, it's a shame it's not around. But kudos to Lance for, being in TNA right now and doing what he's doing over there, of course, alongside Gail Kim and Tommy Dreamer. It's absolutely amazing. The 5 minutes, people always complain about that time, right? So, "Oh, you're only going to give me this much, you're only going to give me this much." How many times have you met somebody, Perish? How many times have you walked up to somebody and within 3.4 seconds, you're never going to talk to this person again? Or on the flip side, on the flip side, you meet him and you're like, "Oh, this dude's awesome. We're going to be watching hockey. We're going to be playing, watching football or drinking beers." So if you're telling me first impressions happen within seconds and you're going to complain about 5 minutes, okay? 5 minutes is a whole lot of seconds. All right. Mm-hmm. It's not just 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 seconds, 10 seconds to go out there and get yourself over. If you don't look at 5 minutes as enough time to get over, then go back to the drawing board and figure out what's going to make you work those 5 minutes the way you should. Any time given to you in any capacity in front of any crowd, in any situation, Okay, it doesn't matter if it's a Zoom meeting at work or if it's a show, whatever you're given, however amount of time you're given, make the best impression. That 5 minutes isn't 5 minutes. It's if it's negative to you, it's negative because you're looking at it as 5 minutes. It's negative. It's not negative. There are people that I got over in 5 minutes. Look at Dolph Ziggler. When he was in had to run all those matches, man, and 4 or 5 minutes and blowing the roof off the place. He beat Del Rio for the title. If I remember, that match was under 6 minutes, if I remember correctly. From him, his music hitting, it was under 6 minutes. And it was a world title match. He was cashing the Money in the Bank, one of the biggest moments in WWE history. So you're telling me 5 minutes isn't enough? Get out of your own head. Get out of your own way and make every 5 minutes count of your life. Don't just sit and look at 5 minutes as being a negative thing.
Well, I find it very ironic that a lot of people will talk about, 5 minutes, and it could be in a negative way, but then they'll go on YouTube and instead of watching the whole video, they'll watch the shorts. Mm-hmm. So if there's something that you're watching on YouTube and it only takes 25 seconds to catch your eye, we're adding 4.5 minutes to that. So now we're going to absolutely body slam your attention span, and we're going to absolutely just drop kick every emotional investment we can. And that, I think, is what people aren't aware of, because you go back to Sheamus versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania. That was not 5 minutes, but it almost was one of the building blocks to WrestleMania, which is one of the biggest feel-good stories in WWE history. So, yeah, 5 minutes is a lot. What
about Santino getting eliminated in the Rumble in under a second or whatever that was? Same deal there, man. Like, you make the best out of what you can get. That's life, Sorry to cut you off there.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's everything's on the table here. Hey, a good wrestling match has a cutoff, and a great conversation has one too.
Yes, I like it. Good. Well articulated there. I like
Thank you. But no, if somebody was to say, hey, you got 5 minutes left, you're not going to bitch about it. If you had 5 minutes left, you're going to make the most of it. And that's exactly what pro wrestlers do when given that time. Because, you might get 5 minutes now, but if those are good, you might get 6 minutes next time. You might get 10 minutes next time. Hell, you might get 5 more minutes. And guess what? That's 5 more minutes than you thought you had anyway. So at the end of the day, it's a benefit. So, and
how many times do we say, "Oh, I wish I had 5 minutes with this person. I wish I could talk to this person for just 5 minutes." Just, you know what I mean? Even if somebody past life or somebody you look up to that you idolize, an actor or an athlete, you're like, if I just had 5 minutes with this person, man, I could learn so much. In that situation, 5 minutes isn't 5 minutes. It's all the time in the world. So why is it if you're given 5 minutes on a show, you can't make the best of it?
Hey, I have a son, and it didn't take me 5 minutes. So guess what? You can make a life change in 5 minutes.
Yes, absolutely. Like that.
Nice. But I do want to talk about the next 5 minutes, and I'm saying that as in the next chapter in your life. You're no longer in the pro wrestling. You're in the announcing. You're into that field. How is that treating you? And what are you learning as you're going into that realm? Because it is a little different, but at the same time, you're probably also having some of the most fun that you never thought you could have.
So before I started wrestling, I had to, just like everybody else, had to, cut their teeth in, and I was reffing, I was announcing, I was doing music, sometimes doing all, every job you can do except wrestle at a show. I was doing it. So I was lucky to have that before. And when I got in, I still had it in the back of my head, like, okay, if anything happens, I can still do this, I can still do that. Now, going back to your question, looking at the announcing now, looking at these kids when I'm walking in the locker room, is the first thing I tell everybody when I go to announce a show is I look at the wrestlers dead in the face. I said, how do you need me to announce you? Oh, it's fine. You do this. You can do. I'm sorry, what? I'm like, listen, I am here to get you over. My voice gets you over when you come out. What do I need to say to you for you to get yourself over? And then once they hear that, like, oh, okay. And they're telling me, I had one wrestler literally give me almost a paragraph that was read as they were making their way out to the ring. And I was like, you know what? If that's what you want, if that's what's going to make you happy, it's going to give you memory. Awesome. I'm going to live vicariously through you in that regard. I'm going to make it sound the best I can. At the same time, it's not just the announcing. People are coming up to me. They get nerves. They get, like how's it going to go? Is it going to work? What do you think is this? What is that? helping kind of, put a match together. Hey, instead of this part here, do this. Instead of that, do this. So the fact that I'm not only a proud papa in life as life sits, is like now I'm taking the patriarch mentality and kind of leading it into the locker room. Like, hey, I can help these kids out, help them. If they want to hear it, cool. If you don't, I'm not going to be bothered by it. You know what I mean? I'm doing this because I want to do it. I'm showing up to these shows like Apex because I want to show up to these shows and announce. Prescott Pro Wrestling, I'm showing up because I want to show up and announce. You look at these things and you get to appreciate it more. And I think because you appreciate it more and you don't have that competitive, like, gun to head, like, I have to do this and I have to do this perfectly, I get to enjoy it more so probably than a lot of the people at the show. And I get the best seat in the house every time.
How did you get involved in that? And I'm going to ask probably the most important question. Mm-hmm. Why did you get involved and why announce it?
So I obviously can't do the wrestling anymore. And when I was announcing, I was told I was decent at it. And I was like, okay. And, shows would pop up here and there. Something would happen. And, I'd get a DM or something like, hey, this person's looking for an announcer. This guy's looking for this. And this is all the past 7-8 months. And it was like, other than, CDC Lucha, I wasn't announcing any other show. I wasn't putting together any other shows until people reached out to me like, hey, I'm like, okay, where's it going to be? How long is it going to be? Let's see what it is. Because, again, family. And then you see it, and then you go be a part of it once, and you're like, okay, I really like this. Like, this is really cool. It's a good group of people. And you want to get them to the next level. And you want to show them, hey, man, like, you got to be a little bit tougher, in this business, in this sport, you know what I mean, to represent yourself and to be who you are. Not be afraid to tell an announcer to do this, you know what I mean? Don't be afraid to get out there and do your thing. And I think the fact that I have had these experiences and been where I've been, it is, and nothing compared to what other people have done in their careers, but I still believe I have enough to be able to give back to, the young up and comers. And I just want to leave this business better than I left it, man. Like, because this business has been a part of me since I was a kid. And every time I went to wrestling, it was because, whether bad days or good days, wrestling always made me feel good growing up. And if I can at least be a part of it in this capacity where I'm writing or I'm booking or I'm announcing anything, I mean, I'm all game for it.
Do you find yourself enjoying it as much as the performing, or do you find it challenging because you're still fresh into it? How is your mindset in it? And do you even watch the product a little differently now that you're, on a different side of it?
I tell people this all the time. Unfortunately, I started watching the product different after my first meeting to get into pro wrestling. Yeah. It was because of a little conversation, and it blew my mind because I didn't know to the extent now what people can go on the internet and research about professional wrestling and learn in the terms and all this stuff. I'm like, I didn't know. I was so green. I didn't know what green meant. There's a joke. Mm-hmm. Literally, I was so green in professional wrestling. I didn't know what green meant in professional wrestling. So once the magician told me how the trick was done, or how the curtain was pulled back at that point, that's where I started watching it differently. But that's where I realized, hey man, I can't get out right now. I can't. There's no way I can ever change my perception of looking at this now, because now I know how it's done. So from there, looking at it now, yes, I still watch the product. I way too much sometimes, according to my wife. Mm-hmm. But because again, if there's nothing else on, I always throw it on wrestling. You're always gonna be entertained. Is how I look at it.
Yeah.
But going back to your question, the mentality walking in now is, it's a little bit of a struggle because I always had that love for wanting to perform in the ring because I love it. But again, I can still perform in other aspects of it. And now if I'm, helping with a match or helping with this, and like, hey, so, X, Y, and Z is going to happen. Then you're going to transition to this. And then boom, you're going to hear the crowd, wow. And then now you're watching it live and they go do X, Y, and Z. And they go into the transition and wow, the crowd comes up. You're like, okay, cool. I get to kind of live through that a little bit. You still get to be a part of it. Kind of like, I would assume the agents in WWE or AEW or TNA, same way. They might not be doing it every day like they used to. They want to be in there, but at the same time, it's, we know for whatever reason we can't, and mine's because I came back from a broken ankle. Couldn't get past it. Didn't want to get injured again after that. It took too much out of me. From that point, it was like 2 matches and I'm good. But now the mentality is going in is to be just to help these guys enjoy it and these girls enjoy it and love it the way I do, and to just tell them, man, hey, you're part of this now. You know what the secrets are. Don't fucking waste it. You learn the secrets. Get out there and go do this.
Now, I would be very much upset at myself if I didn't ask you if you could announce the Pali Prince. How does Sal announce the Pali Prince coming out into the main event to go after the World Heavyweight Championship? How does Sal Erakat announce the Pali Prince?
Full disclosure, I've had to announce myself before. So if I can't remember what movie it was. It was William Shatner, though. I can't remember what movie it was, but he's actually announcing himself from behind the curtain, and he's like, "Ladies and gentlemen, now introducing the greatest blah blah and the so and so," and then he goes off in this whole list, and he says his name in the movie, right? William Shatner, and then he puts the thing and he walks out the curtain, and they look at him like, "Did he just announce himself? Like he literally just announced himself, right?" So it's like I've had to do that again because of resources being thin in places. I've had to announce myself. But the way I announce, man, is the way I've been told. I sound. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking out his name from WCW right now. Of course, when you're live, you always forget his name.
Michael Buffer?
No, from WCW, the announcer.
Tenay?
No. Ring announcer from WCW back in the day. We're going back to the 90s.
Oh, back in the day. See, like I started watching it with Buffer. Unfortunately, that's when we got on TV. So it was different.
Oh no, fair enough. But from there, like or Finkel. I love Howard Finkel. So the way when I announce is full blown. I just right out the lungs, like, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to just come straight out with it. Every time you announce, you got to be excited.
Wasn't Dave Pencer? Was it?
There you go. Boom. Dave Penzer. That's it. Yep. Thank you.
Thanks, Google. Thank you, Google.
Man. Okay. All right. Well, I don't feel as bad for not remembering it. So.
No. I didn't remember it. Hey, man. If you, a wise man once said, "If you're not cheating, you're not trying." But
we have so much stuff pushed out of these brains, man. It's like you have it 1 second in your head, and the next second it's gone. It's like, oh, okay. Hey, that I don't miss.
I need to keep space for that little monkey just bang those drums. All right, I can't force him out. He is too important. Simpsons reference. I'm picking up. I got you, man. There you go.
Greatest show of all time, dude. Don't get me started on Simpsons. It's become a Simpsons podcast right now if we go down this route. So we got to be careful.
All right, I won't do that. But before,
so Deep Space Homer, by the way.
Pardon?
Deep Space Homer is my favorite episode of Simpsons, by the way. FYI. So. Just FYI, if you're gonna call it out.
I still love the mini golf one, and I don't know why, but I just thought it was stupid.
Oh, with Todd and Rod and Bart, where they
yeah,
that was the end with the ones that have to wear their wives' Sunday dresses or whatever at the end.
Yeah,
so funny,
fantastic. So funny because that happens in real life. So relatable.
The best.
But before I don't want to kind of go into everything because obviously I do want to bring you back. I want to have part 2 and I want to dive down more into the Sal outside of the wrestling. How does he view wrestling just as a fan? So I'll leave that for part 2. But the one thing I want to make sure that we get in this is you referenced Pali Prince. You mentioned that's who you were in the ring, but we haven't really done a deep dive in who the Pali Prince is. And for the people that maybe want to go and check out some of your old footage, who is the Pali Prince and what can people expect?
So the Pali Prince, we're told, to always not be somebody different in wrestling, right? You always want to be a version of yourself, just as they always say, turned up, amplify it, right? So Pali being short for Palestinian, my heritage, what I am, being Middle Eastern, I always grew up with this chip on the shoulder, man. Being Middle Eastern and stuff, you always have the stereotypes, the stigmas that are attached to it. Not from everybody, of course. Not everybody's, not everybody's mean, I should say, but you do have that growing up. So I got into wrestling and trying to figure out how to do this is to sit and create this Pali Prince character who's an Arab American, who initially was coming out singing Arabic pop songs to the crowd to try to get him to like it. Eventually transitioned to, no, you're not going to like me. Now I'm going to get back in the gym. Now I'm going to work out. Now I'm going to be 240 pounds. And now I'm going to walk into the ring and show you why you need to love me and why you hating me is your fault and not mine. even though I'm Middle Eastern. So I would come in and just, full-fledged show what I could do in the ring. And whether it was a heel or a face, just put everything I had into it, the personality, and just jammed it all the way up. And when as a heel, I had to tap into those, the bad moments and stuff. But when I was a face, it was just tapping into being in the moment and being able to enjoy wrestling. And that's how the Pali Prince used to kind of associate everything. If I was coming out as a face, go out there and enjoy the moment with the people. If I was a heel, go out there and internally, as much as you're yelling and screaming at the crowd or being pissed off at the crowd, is how much you're having fun. So all those matches, they go back and watch them, man. You're gonna see two different styles, two different personalities, a face and a heel, but always delivering, that one match that people are like, that was a little bit different.
Did you prefer babyface or did you prefer heel?
Heel, always heel. People are afraid to be yelled at. People are afraid to be hated. And maybe that's part of the Pali Prince or that's part of Sal growing up, is that sometimes he was hated for no reason. And it was just like, or because of, what I was or, whatever it was. So for me, being hated in that capacity, be able to walk out and really piss off the crowd and taking away what they wanted, because as a heel, I feel you get to control the crowd more than as a face. As a face, yeah, you want to feel the crowd. You want them to, empathize with you. But as a heel, you can literally in every moment take away from the crowd and you can have them in the palm of your hands. I think just in a different sense than being a face. So I always loved. I didn't care about the boos. I didn't give a crap that I was being booed, man. Honestly, but
a boo is a heel's cheer. A boo is a heel's cheer. Right.
Make sure. Did you guys hear that? Can you say that one more time?
One more time. A boo is a heel's cheer.
Did you hear that? Have thicker skin. Don't be sad that these people are booing you. Okay, be the heel that you're supposed to be. Take away from the crowd like you're supposed to, and not just freaking, live for yourself.
Yeah, and I think we live in an age now where we can honestly say being the cool heel is the most overrated, dumbest way to play a heel. Either do it or just go back to being a babyface.
That's it. Understood. I agree 100%, man. Because it messes stuff up, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Like it messes with the actual story and what you're trying to tell. If you got two people that are trying to be bad, but still trying to be cheered, it doesn't make sense.
100% agree. And I honestly, I'm gonna have to bring you back for a second part because we're gonna have so much more fun with that end of it. But we talked earlier about 5 minutes being so important. Sal, I want to give you 5 minutes. I want you to talk about a little bit of where the people can find you as I'm pulling down your socials on there. But it's not just online. Nice. Where can people find you, whether it's in a ring, announcing? What are some of the places that you want to give a chance for the people to go look up? This is your time now. As I said earlier, plug your shit.
Thank you. Go to X, go to Facebook, go to Instagram. I don't know where I'm going to be half the time. Every weekend is different. Every show is different. The past, since June 20th, man, I have been between Prescott. I have been between shows all over the valley, and I've been even camping for 3 days up in Payson. Been a lot of places and a lot of things, but keep on my social medias, keep finding me. You never know when I'm gonna pop up. Right now, of course, CDC Lucha Libre, right here, anytime we're running, I'll be there. Apex Wrestling Federation, and of course, anywhere any of the people want me. You guys need me for a show, you want to announce, I help write, man. I got people that hit me up on social media to help me up with writing, as I do professional writing as well, not just for wrestling. I can write papers, I can write articles, whatever is needed, professional style papers and whatnot. So anything that is needed for that sense, you can find me, and I enjoy doing all of it. I absolutely love it, and never know I'm going to pop up.
Not really 5 minutes, but nonetheless, doesn't matter. Sometimes when you're good, you don't need all 5 minutes.
I don't want to put myself or let people put me over. So my socials have everything, and simple as that. So
this is the time, man. I wouldn't be doing my job if I'm not giving you an opportunity to put yourself over, because let's face it.
Appreciate it.
That's what we're all here for. It's not so much to just boast our egos. No, it's have a good conversation. It's to get our point across. It's help grow. And thank you so much for coming down. And yeah, once again, we're gonna have a second part. Are you okay with that?
I am 100% okay with that, man. This went way too short, actually. I thought it was gonna be a little bit longer.
Well, story of my adult life, but nonetheless, that is a conversation for a second episode.
Type of podcast.
Yeah,
talk about that. All right.
Oh, see, that's how you sell. You got to bring people back, right?
Yes,
I just want to thank everyone who's tuning in for the Chris Perish podcast. This was the episode 34 with formerly known Pali Prince and Sal Erakat. Yes, go right ahead.
One more thing. Support local wrestling.
100.
Whatever show you're going to, get to those shows. Be positive about it. If you're in the crowd, make sure you're cheering for what you like and make sure you're booing what you hate. All right. These people put a lot of work into what they do, whether it's in the gym, at home, whatever they need to do to get to the show, to perform in front of you guys. Be there and go support them. Let's get independent wrestling back to where it was, where we're selling out shows all across. And I'm not asking to be a part of all these shows, but for the benefit and for the love of all pro wrestling, which we can agree on, leave your bullshit and your hate out the door, and let's freaking all love pro wrestling the way we're supposed to.
And with that being said, see you guys next week. Thank you, and go Saints.